I have a question for you.
Sure.
What problems do you think women face?
What problems do I think women face?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't really, if you're a woman, it depends what your political leanings are, but there are some women who are pro-choice, and in some states, some women can't get an abortions, but however, if you're a pro-lifer, you don't really see that as, but for some women, I suppose that could be an issue for some women. Of course, there are women who are pro-life who that's not an issue for them. In some regions, you can't go topless. I'm all for free the titty movement. I'm all about free the titty. So that is one way women, that is one, honestly, that's the only right that men have that women don't, I think, in this country.
It's to show your titties.
Is men can go topless. It is true, men can go topless, women can't. That shit is unfair. And I'm all for it. Y'all can
So you don't think
free the fucking titty.
So you don't think women have any real issues?
Well, I do. Okay. So when we're talking about from like a rights perspective, I think we have equality. I can't think of any right that men have that women don't. Now, on a societal level, there's probably, yes, there are probably things that women face that men don't, and vice versa. But typically when we're talking about women's rights, like I'm talking about rights, like we're talking about rights. So I think, do men and women face specifically gendered issues? Yes. But there's this whole trope of, I'm fighting for women's rights. Which ones? It's not clear to me that men have any rights that women don't at this point.
I guess the pro-choice, pro-life thing, I think some women can argue, that a man is deciding what they can do with their body.
Not really. Well, men can't get pregnant, so I feel like that's not really a realistic, because men can't get pregnant, it's not clear to me. You could actually make a very compelling argument that men are disadvantaged on the reproductive rights front because men have absolutely zero reproductive rights. If you get your girlfriend pregnant and she wants to keep the kid, you don't have a say. If she wants to get rid of the kid, you don't have a say.
Yeah, no, I'm
not
making
an argument for one or the other, but we don't, in either direction, we don't have any reproductive rights. So it's not clear to me if it's a right that a man has that a woman doesn't, because we don't have any reproductive rights to begin with. So, yeah.
Well, I think the argument is, a woman should be able to decide what she does, with her body. I don't think.
Well, that's a separate thing, but it's not a equal rights thing.
It's not
I don't think because
I guess it means rights to bodily autonomy, like just.
Well, men have a different bodily autonomy.
I don't think that's something you compare. I think it's just something that's like. Yeah. Women just don't have that ability to make that choice.
Well, depending on your state.
Depending on your state. But
men also we can make the argument that men actually have a stronger bodily autonomy argument when it comes to military conscription.
Yeah, that's the whole topic of that. Men have it different, women have it different.
Right. But I would say that the difference is that, of course, there are women who get assaulted, but most abortions, it's like consensual sex, didn't mean to get pregnant. So you chose to have sex, whereas men, their bodily autonomy argument is the state, the government, coming in and saying, okay, you're drafted, we're shipping you to the Middle East, who knows what's going to fucking happen with this current war there.
I don't think you should compare, though. Do you know what I'm saying?
What do you mean?
I don't think we should compare.
We don't have to compare.
Oh, I thought you. No, I just.
Well,
thought
we could. I think.
I just thought that you just said that men have.
Well, we're talking about bodily autonomy, and women or feminists might say, well, men don't have a bodily autonomy concern, but we actually do when it comes to forced military conscription. Oh, also, here. Again, bodily autonomy, most men in this country are circumcised upon birth without consent. So, that's another bodily autonomy argument. And so,
Yeah, it's just
It's funny,
different.
you laugh, but literally
It's
men's
true.
penises are mutilated upon birth without
it's
informed
crazy.
consent. So, I mean,
So when you're circumcised, does that like affect how like what does that affect when you're
well,
circumcised?
I don't know the specific statistics on this, but my understanding is that there is a percentage rate when it comes to botched circumcisions. So some men lose their penis, some men have injury when they are circumcised. I don't think it's certainly not the majority, but there are certainly botched circumcisions. I think for a greater portion of men, they might lose some pleasure or sensitivity that they otherwise would have during sexual activity. But then it also just comes down to choice. I think, and it's probably to some degree, I think it could inflict some sort of trauma because, I mean, you're inflicting physical pain on the newborn. We don't know what kind of mental trauma that might impact on the child. Maybe there's none. I don't know. I don't know if they've done studies on it, but I don't think we should be mutilating newborns. So, and I don't think there's actually a very strong claim to this like hygiene thing. I think there's plenty of men who live in other countries who are not circumcised, who can observe good hygiene when it comes to their parts. So that's another bodily autonomy component. So yeah, I mean, you guys laugh, but like literally, if you think about it, newborn males are getting their genitals mutilated upon birth. So
You wouldn't circumcise your son?
No, I would not.
Mm-hmm.
So
Don't people do that for like religious reasons?
Yeah.
sure, there's religious reasons. Some people just do it
Like it's an aesthetic
for
thing.
for aesthetic or
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I like
there's
s-
there's
yeah.
no real benefits like that really
Yeah.
come
sure,
from
but I don't think
circumcision.
it's there. But I just don't think the pros outweigh the cons. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm trying to remember where we were going. Oh, bodily autonomy. Yeah, I mean, hot take, I would say that forced military conscription is worse than Roe v. Wade being repealed.
I just don't think we should compare. Because it's like, I'm not a man, you're not a woman. Do you know what I mean? You're like, it's.
Well, I mean, regardless of our
I
gender
feel like
or sex, I think.
I feel like it's just hard to compare two different things that are just like on opposite ends.
Well, I mean, I suppose you can make some comparisons because it is a bodily autonomy thing. So, yeah, I think forced military conscription is a worse infliction upon men than the current state of abortion rights in this country. Without making a statement on abortion rights, I just think, like, this is something you're forced to do, whereas, like, again, yes, there are some women who are SA'd, but most women who get abortions, it was from perfectly consensual sex. So the difference is that the state, the government, can come in, force you to go to war, but nobody's forcing you to have sex.
That's your opinion.
It's not my opinion, it's
No, like that-
fact.
Okay.
You
But,
think
like,
it's my
no,
opinion that...
I'm saying it's your opinion that you think that.
Oh, that I think it's a
Yeah.
greater, that forced military conscription is a greater grievance than abortion rights.
Yeah, that's your opinion.
Well, do you disagree? Do you think one is more
I
important
just
than
don't
the
think
other?
that there should be like a comparison. That's personally how I see it. Because I think that once you start comparing it, then it's just like
Well, I think you can make comparisons.
you can make comparisons, but when you see value, like what's worth, like then I think that the subject, I don't know. I just think
But that's the
subject-
whole concept of male privilege, female privilege, and that's pretty much the bedrock of feminism. We as women have been disadvantaged in comparison to men. We desire equal treatment in comparison to men. And I'll tell you this, there's not feminists that are fighting for equalization of military conscription. And you might say, well, we haven't had the draft in a long time. I'll tell you this, when it comes to the Vietnam War, there are men that would be alive today that aren't because of forced military conscription. And there are men alive today that were conscripted in the military that have PTSD, who've lost limbs because they went to Vietnam and they saw horrific things, or they got a fucking shell in their head or whatever.
But do you think it's also because like what that guy had said about, you know, like obviously in war you need someone who's like stronger, faster. If all these other countries are sending their strongest, you know, soldiers, obviously women, we don't stand a chance. Like if we're gonna fight these other countries, we have to send men.
Well, sure, there is a practical and a pragmatic component of, well, just based on pure biological reality that men have greater upper body strength and you know, whatever it may be. But wait, do you think that, just consensus on this, are men generally speaking physically stronger than women?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because some feminists
don't
are
think so, no.
like actually okay.
No.
But I mean, I would make the argument that you can also have conscription for support roles, so women should be conscripted too. But you don't see feminists in the street fighting for equalization of military conscription. Actually, they fight against it. Actually, a lot of feminist organizations will fight against equality if said equality comes to the detriment of women. That's why I don't think feminism is about equality. I think in the most generous, if I can paint feminism in the most good light, it is women's advocacy. There's nothing wrong with women's advocacy, but let's not get it twisted with equality. So my thing with feminism is feminists will fight for equality only if women benefit from said equality. If said equality would come to the detriment of women, feminists will not fight for it. Military conscription, a lot of like custody things, feminist organizations will push against it. Reformation of alimony laws, feminist organizations push against it. In Florida, there was a law to equalize custody of children. I think it was the National Organization for Women, which was one of the leading women's and feminist organizations in this country. In Florida, they campaigned against the bill to equalize shared custody. So again, feminists will fight against equality if that equality could in some way conceivably come to the detriment of women. So I don't really think feminism is about equality. I think it's about women's advocacy in the most generous light. Triggered? A little triggered?
No.
Not triggered?
No.
No, I mean,
No.
yeah. I'm not.
I'm happy to, if you guys want to rebuke me or
I
disagree.
think what
that's
you're
fine.
saying is valid, and I know a lot of people in this room probably don't agree, but what you're saying is valid.
I think I saw what's that one movie about like the feminist movement? Is it The Red Pill? I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily called The Red Pill, but it does, you know, kind of speak on like, you know, alimony and like child support and how like there really is a war on men. And I don't agree with all of it, but I do, I do see, you know, your point of view with that.
I'll say this. There are no feminists when World War III starts. A lot of you guys
I can see
want
that.
equal rights. Once
Equal
World War-
rights, equal fights. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, but yes.
I mean, like, look at Ukraine. All the women could leave the country. All the men had to stay from the age of 18 to, I think, 60 or 65. You, as a man, could not leave the country. If you're a woman, you could leave. That's why, you know, it's so crazy. Oh, feminism this, feminism that. When it fucking comes down to it, when it comes down to the fight, when it comes down to Russia invading your country, there's no feminists anymore.